All right, we're live. I'm joined with my good bud, Chris Murphy. You know, someone I kind of look up to, kind of like a dad figure in the golf betting industry. Last time he was on, he hit a winner, so he's overdue. Chris, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, bud. Just trying to hopefully hit another winner this week.
You know,
Glad.
that Houston Open pod, I still get DMs about that day, about that pod. It was just so much fun. And then I posted the sped up version of your explanation of Kokrak, and you were like, am I okay? Like, was I really talking that fast? Like, I really should have clarified in that moment that I sped it up to 1.5 speed. But you did give a perfect explanation for Kokrak, and you hit a winner that week.
Hey, that's how I listen to all my pods. It's 1.5 speed, so I'm just not used to listening to myself talk that fast.
No, I literally will never listen to a pod on regular speed. It's the worst thing ever. And, you know, we're busy guys. Like, I have things to do in my life on a day-to-day basis. So I can't be listening to things at regular speed. I need it to be sped up so I can, you know, be more productive throughout my day.
Yeah, exactly. Completely agree.
So before we get into a load of different golf subject and controversial issues, we got to bring up our favorite sponsor, BetSperts Golf. Go check their stuff out. If you're watching on the YouTube page, like and subscribe. I was doing the DFS roundtable with Ryan and Andy last week. They're great guys. Splits, everyone knows, puts out great information. So go check out their site. They make this pod possible, and I really appreciate them. So I'm glad that they could be a great sponsor. And, you know, Chris is a company man. You know, he's an Action Network guy. You know, he does his thing. So you know about the sponsors. You know about the, you know, the corporate life and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. But don't forget about Fantasy Points. Come over there and check us out there too. We're free this week, so you can see all the golf content on Fantasy Points this week as well.
Yeah, you got Jers, you got Dom, you got a lot of guys over there doing great things. So,
a lot of good dudes. Yep.
A lot of good dudes putting out great content. So I guess the first thing I want to talk about, the most pressing issue, is Billy Horschel calling. So this is the situation. Billy Horschel just drained an eagle putt to go up 4 when he was up 2 at the time, basically ending the tournament. It's only him and Aaron Wise. They're in the same group. Billy Horschel, you know, he's kind of a journeyman. He's been around the block for a little bit. Aaron Wise, a younger guy on tour. He just trades the eagle putt. Aaron Wise pipes one down the middle, and Billy Horschel says, "Nice swing, bud," to Aaron Wise, to another grown man after he just sank an eagle putt in his face. I don't think Billy did it like intentionally to be a dick. I just don't think you call another grown man bud when you're competing for millions of dollars and like a title on the PGA Tour.
Yeah, see, I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I've realized after you took offense to this bud comment, how much I say it in my everyday life. Say it on Twitter, say it to my friends. I say bud all the time. So I think somebody mentioned that it's common in Canada. Maybe it was Feinberg, somebody along those lines. So maybe I've got a little Canadian in me, but bud is a common drop for me. Now I'm all worried that I'm offending people and talking down to others by calling them bud when really, you know, I'm not. I'm just, you know, it's kind of a term of endearment type of thing.
Yeah, I think if it's like someone like you're actually buds with, like, I think that's fine. Like, I think you see your friend, oh, what's up, bud? Like, how you doing? I think it's like an East Coast thing. Because like I was talking with my home friends, and they're like, absolutely, like bud is like, in my opinion, bud is something like you call, like you used to date this girl, and then like you meet her and her ex-boyfriend, and you're like, what's up, bud? Like that, you are immediately above them. Like if you call someone bud. And like, I just think in that situation, like you're grown men, like competing on the PGA, just like, it's just not for me. Like if I hit a drive, I don't hit it very far. It goes like 230 fairway and someone goes, nice swing, bud. I'm like, okay. Like,
yeah, no, I agree. It's all about the way that it's delivered. You know,
Yes.
if you're like, oh yeah, Brian, nice swing, bud, finally hit a fairway. Like that's, you know, we're talking down to you. But I think there's definitely that line of how it's delivered. You know, you don't want to just kind of ruin the day for all I mean, there are a lot of good buds in the world. You know,
absolutely.
you got,
Like a bud can be used right.
yeah,
But,
I mean, there's plenty of buds out there that you know, you just don't want to offend them for, you know, something that's meant to be, you know, just buddy type of thing, you know. And we don't know. Maybe Wise and Horschel share beers after the rounds. You know, maybe they hang out. Who knows?
And I think that the saving grace in all this is that he called Jack Nicklaus buddy, which like that's just don't do that. Like all-time leading major winner, like you call him buddy. So like that's where like I don't think Billy Horschel was like literally being a dick. It was just like weird, and like maybe like kind of like the beta short king in me was just like, yo, like if someone calls me bud, like it's on site. So I think it's just like an East Coast thing. But you know, Billy Horschel, like, were you kind of like, what the fuck? Because I love these weeks because everyone puts out their picks. Everyone does their podcast. Everyone goes into excruciating detail as to why to play certain golfers. And no, like, 5 people, like literally 5 people maybe bet Billy Horschel and like publicly stated it out of like 500 like people that like put out picks and stuff. Like I love those weeks because it just shows how random and hard picking golf outrights is. Because if you look at like kind of his season, like he wasn't having a bad season. He made every single cut. Had some good finishes, had the good finish at API, had another decent amount of finishes, makes the cut at the PGA. He's historically not good in majors, misses a lot of cuts in majors, misses the cut at Charles Schwab. And then it's just like literally no one even thinks about him in any respect. And then he goes out and wins. Like it's just kind of unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. And I told you, you know, he was never on my radar for an outright. I went through kind of my player pool on the DFS side. You know, with Billy, he runs hot or he runs cold. Like you usually can kind of see it coming, and he does it for 3 or 4 weeks in a row, and then you know, he kind of peaks. And I looked at a couple weeks and X'd him out. Like he wasn't even in my player pool. Never really thought twice about it. I saw him a little bit on Friday and was close to writing him up, but that was as close as I came. And it just was a week where he just wasn't on the radar. And you tend to forget, you know, API, he was a foot from tying Scheffler on the 18th hole. I mean, he was right there. So the form, you know, was there, and it wasn't that long ago that he was right there in contention. And you just tend to kind of forget about those things, and players like that have been around for so long, and you kind of get the ups and downs, and you can kind of see where they go from week to week. They tend to fall by the wayside unless you see a number, and I think that's where some of the people that did end up on him just saw the number balloon as the week went on, and they took a shot. So it's fun, but it tells you what golf's all about. You know, it can come out of anywhere at any time.
Yeah, and he even said, I was watching a lot of the broadcasts over the weekend, and he said, he's like, after he missed a cut at the Memorial, he's like, I don't miss a lot of cuts. Honestly, I was angry. And my wife said, like, would you have rather have made the cut and had a middling finish, or got to work on your game and come out, you know, the next week? And, you know, that's like, if someone said on a podcast, like, you know, I think Billy's motivated by his missed cut. Like, I think he could come out. Like, I think people would, like, kind of laugh at that. And be like, okay,
for sure.
You can't, like, predict that. And then it turns out to be, you know, completely true. So, you know, those are the weeks I can stomach when no one's on somebody and I wasn't on my radar. But when someone wins and it was obvious or they were at a good number, like, you know, I brought up the examples a few times, like Sam Burns, Charles Schwab. He wins at a good number. Bet it. Max Homa at Wells Fargo. good number, wins, bet it. Like, it wasn't really one of those. And I think the fact that he hadn't won a stroke play event in the United States since 2017, I just don't think a lot of people, are like, oh, I'm going to bet Billy Horschel outright. Like, this is the week. I just think he's not really one of those golfers that people think about. And he obviously made us all look stupid. But, pick a losers every week.
That's the way it goes.
So
yeah.
There's no difference.
Yeah, there's only one winner. So you got a lot of losers every week.
So look, this was a big day in the live golf development, the live golf community. Everyone's firing off jokes, everyone's firing up takes and stuff, and everything's been talked about. What I wanted to talk to you about and kind of just go over is kind of just how this kind of like affects what we do. What do? We bet on the PGA Tour. Like, I don't think there's any scenario in which this makes it better or more enjoyable or there's more value betting on the PGA Tour. It makes it worse. So anyone like liking this or like celebrating it, I just don't get it. If your job is to put out golf content, because we're just going to have more weeks like this and we're just going to have more shitty numbers. And I think I was a little naive to that, but I think it's kind of true.
No, I completely agree with you. I mean, we get the weeks where and we're going to talk about this field and how it's it's really top heavy in terms of the number of stars and then how it kind of falls off. But we get those weeks where you get one or maybe two of those elite players at the top. And, we're not seeing elites go over there, but, missing the Kevin Nas, the Taylor Gooches, the Sergios at certain times where they're kind of that middle of the road, just beyond kind of the upper tier, is probably going to have an impact in terms of just the overall strength of field, the strength of the numbers that we get, the odds, things like that. DJ in any field is going to have an impact towards the top. And the fact is that there's going to be more. I mean, we know that more is coming. We know Kokrak is going to be there. There's rumors that he's getting married. And that's why he's not in this first one, and he'll come later. And then, it's going to be a bit of a trickle down possibly as people, other players see large money going to people that they continually beat on a week-to-week basis, things like that. So it'll be, I'm intrigued by where it's going and what's going to happen. But there's no question that the quality of golf on both tours is going to be negatively impacted.
Yeah, like my thing about it is like, and Tambo tweeted, No Laying Up tweeted, expected announcement later this week that Bryson will be playing in the Portland event. And then Tambo quoted and said, expect an announcement soon that Bryson, Koepka, Fowler, Reed, Kokrak, and Vegas will all be playing the Portland event. And it's like, okay, like, I don't know what week. Do you know offhand what week Portland is up against? John Deere?
No, I don't.
I think it's John Deere, honestly.
Yeah, that could be right. That seems right for timing.
So it's just like, okay, now I guess it's like you have shitty numbers to bet on two different tours. Like, I would rather bet good numbers on one tour.
Right.
Like, because at the end of the day, like, I think this is a really good example. It's just like, it's, again, betting outright's like you want to hit that big number. Like, you want that minimal investment to win a lot of money. And the more people that go over and the more people that do this, it's just going to be harder and harder to do that because you're not going to get these really great numbers and you're just going to have to front a lot more money to get the return that you want. And obviously you can bet on Live, and my local book, they put up odds and, they're all right. But it's just like, again, it's shitty numbers. I'm not throwing $100 on Kevin Na, like, to win at 14-1.
Right.
And I'm used to betting him at 40-1. Like, it's just tough. And I just, again, there's nothing we can do about it. It doesn't matter, but it's just tough.
Yeah. And I think, kind of over there, you're kind of getting the Tournament of Champions or Hero event on a weekly basis whenever they tee it up. And then over here, they're kind of, if you're right, and they're going opposite of the John Deere, you end up with, historically one of the worst fields annually. And you just kind of end up with a week where, there's a lot left to be desired, but it is what it is. We'll see where it goes and see how it develops, I guess.
Yeah, I guess we'll see, and everyone will watch this week. I mean, I bet Kevin Na and I bet Taylor Gooch. I just think those are the best players in the field. Like, I think both of those golfers right now playing have a better chance to win than Louis and DJ. Like, Louis not good at golf anymore, straight up, full stop. DJ hasn't been great. So I'll take my chances on non-Gooch. Those are my live plays again, but the odds aren't good. I'm not forking up a bunch of money on it. So, the payout will be a little bit lower, but those are my guys. So
I don't have the odds available to me. The only live touting I'll do for you is, maybe this whole decision's been weighing on DJ, and that's what's been making him play poorly, and he's going to go out and crush, and you need to, put $1,000 on his 340 to 1, or plus 340 or whatever it is, so you can win some big money.
Love it. Throw a grand
lock
on DJ lock 100%. I love that take. It's a great take. I honestly love it. So let's get into the RBC Canadian Open. Obviously, we have not been here since 2019. We're at St. George Country Club. It's outside of Toronto. Shorter, par 70, thick rough, tighter fairways, undulating greens by Tom Doak. We got some long par 3s. We got some gettable par 5s. We have some mixed par 4s kind of in there. I'm excited. I'm excited for this golf course from everything I've seen. I quoted your tweet about the flyover. It looks fun. It looks quirky. It looks difficult. It's not a Mexico Open. It's not a Craig Ranch. There's some, difference to this golf course, and I think it will be an enjoyable watch, and I do not think it's going to be a -23 birdie fest, and I think it will make for some interesting golf this week.
Yeah, I agree, and it's kind of got the treeland park, the tree line parkland type feel to it, in terms of how it's a little bit tight, but it also, I think, is going to bring a lot of the field into play. If you watch that, it looks like there are some fairly wide landing areas, and the longer you get, it gets super narrow, and the fairway kind of starts to wind a little bit, things like that. So I think we'll see, a fair amount of less than driver off the tee, just getting into the fairway, and then it becomes kind of an iron contest. And we certainly have some good iron players in the field that I think stand out.
Yeah, it's not sort of a week where we're at a new course and it's just okay, it's not like a Mexico Open where we're just okay, I'm just going to play bombers. I don't think there's a absolute certain skill set that everyone's kind of gleaning onto this week. I think it's just kind of about playing the best well-rounded players. And in a week like this where there's not great numbers, there's a major next week. I'm not betting a lot on this tournament, and I'm not going to lie to my listeners and give out a bunch of names and who I'm betting if I'm not actually going to bet them or bet my normal amount on them, because I'm not doing that, and I'm not lying. So honestly, I like DraftKings this week. I'm going to be playing a lot more DraftKings this week, but in terms of outrights, I legitimately might bet 3 guys, and I normally like to win $2,000 on outrights. I'm betting it to win $1,000. Lowering the exposure. I've been down a couple weeks. US Open next week. Do not blow your load on this tournament, because I don't see kind of the value in the numbers, and I don't see it kind of where it is in the schedule with the US Open next week.
Yeah, I agree. I'm kind of on the same path. I'm probably still going to have my normal exposure, but I've only made one bet right now, and it's a long shot that may or probably does not actually fit the course itself, but got a good number on them, and we'll see where it goes. But yeah, and I'm mostly looking at the top of the board, which is part of the reason that I'm hesitant to see if there's any drift at all. But just trying to decide where to put the money. And then also, I think there's a little bit to doing something live or between rounds on a course that we don't see enough to really know exactly what we're looking for. You can learn a lot just in that first day, and take advantage of some numbers, somebody that maybe didn't start as hot, get a little bit better number and go from there.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a good week for it. If you're going to have a little exposure, see how the course plays, see who's playing well, and kind of go from there. So let's get into it. top of the board, $10,000 range. We got Scotty, JT, Rory, and I'll put Cam Smith kind of in that tier of the top 4 on the odds board. I don't think a lot of people are going to be running to bet any of these guys at 10-1 because that's not fun. That's not sexy. But in terms of starting your DraftKings lineups and in terms of just someone that is making me excited to play DraftKings because I see his ownership not that high, and I truly believe he's probably like top 2, top 3 golfer in the world right now. Justin Thomas at like 15% ownership this week is a joke. I don't think that is absolutely where his ownership could be. I think a lot of people are going to play Rory given his experience at this event in the past, winning it the last time it was around. Rory's been playing some good golf, but if there's going to be any sort of ownership discount on JT, I'm all over it. You're talking about everyone hitting the fairways, this being an iron contest. I am going to play literally the best iron player in the world. He's been putting a lot better, actually. And kind of a take I have is that he saw what having a top 5 finish the week before a major did for him. Obviously finished top 5 at TPC Craig Ranch and then went out and won the PGA the next week. It was a crowning, but he still won. So I think that he wants to be in good form headed to the U.S. Open, and I think he's absolutely the play in the 10K, and I'll be starting a lot of lineups with him.
Yeah, that's where I'm starting my lineups too. He's my favorite play at the very top, and probably he's honestly in consideration for me to take a shot on for an outright. Even at I think you can find a 10-1 or 10.5, something like that. I just think that if this course sets up the way that we think it's going to, where you take the driver out of the hands for the most part, and that's where he, outside of the putting issues where he can go up and down a little bit, his trouble can be when he gets loose with the driver and starts missing fairways. If he's hitting irons off tees, shorter clubs, things like that, and just getting into the short grass and able to fire at greens, then I'll take him all day long over certainly in my opinion over Rory, but also I like Cam a little bit better when it's a little bit more of a wedge game.
Yep.
And Scheffler, it's I just can't quite get there at Scheffler at the shorter numbers yet. I know what he's done, but it's just hard for me to get right there. The one player you didn't mention that is in the 10,000 plus range that I really like as well is Sam Burns. I think he's similar to JT in the fact that when he goes awry, it's because his driver gets loose, he gets a little inaccurate off the tee. Again, dial it back, hit fairways, put him in an iron contest, and he is a great putter on just about every surface.
Yep.
He's somebody that I'm really interested in, and I think he's going to be the lowest owned of that entire group, because we do this weird thing in DFS where we don't like to take a guy that just won, which when you think about it makes no sense whatsoever, because he's in form, and he's shown in the past he has a runner-up finish and a 14th place finish and one missed cut after his 3 wins in his career. And I think that, we're just, we're overlooking him a little bit. And I think he's a great place to start at a cheaper price where you want to keep the bottom end of your lineups a little bit higher if you can, because it gets really, really ugly when you get down to the bottom.
Yeah, it does. And I think Sam Burns at 10K is a great play. And I think that he'll continue kind of the form he's in. I normally, we don't go over every single person at the top, but there's not really that many great options. So I just kind of want to go over everyone. The first guy I want to talk about is Shane Lowry. So I legitimately bet Shane Lowry every single week since the Honda, played him in DraftKings every single week since the Honda, had a big ticket on him at the RBC Heritage when he chipped it in the water. Like, I've done the Shane Lowry thing, and I think you could have said, okay, maybe he peaked right before the RBC, like after the Masters, like maybe it's time. No, and I did it, and then I bet him the last 2 weeks. I think Shane Lowry has peaked. When you look at the numbers, like, he's just not doing it on approach quite as he used to in that 5-week stretch. at the Honda, 6.8, 3.9, 4.5. He gained a bunch on approach at the Masters. I don't have the number. 8.4 at RBC last 2 weeks. Lost on approach at the PGA. Only gained 1.3 on approach at the Memorial. I just think his opportunity to win was kind of up. I think he could finish top 20, but I'm just going to say that he kind of had his opportunity to win, and I'm officially off the Shane Lowry train.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think. I personally can't bet him at the odds that are being listed. I'm not betting Shane Lowry in the teens. Like that's just not happening. But I will have some in DraftKings. He still stands out to me, and especially in this field. I think my goal is to try to jam as many of these guys at the top as I can, and just hope and pray at the bottom. Because they're the ones that I feel like we have some knowledge on and feel like we can rely on. So he's on my shorter list up the top, but I'm not betting him. Certainly not pre-tournament.
Yeah, and Cam Smith, I don't think this is a great course for Cam Smith. I could be wrong. Like maybe it's because I really wanted to play next week, and I'm definitely betting him outright, and I have a 50-1 on him. Like for next week, but I don't know, like smaller kind of fairways, like thicker rough, like I don't know, I don't know if this is a great course for Cam Smith. And it wasn't like he hit the ball really great last week. He kind of did it all with the putter and short game. So I'm not really sure. I think Cam's a fade, honestly. I don't want to play any part of him, and I honestly hope he misses the cut, but I don't think Cam's a play this week.
Yeah, that's really where I am too. Like I said earlier, I prefer him in events where it's going to be a bit of a wedge contest, where he can get some of those shorter clubs in the stands. I don't think he's going to see that as much. You've got 4 of the 5 par threes are over 200 yards. That's just not really where he excels. And you're exactly right. He was not good on the ball striking side at all last week. I think he gained in one round, and you could kind of see the Sunday blow up coming as it went on.
Yeah, no, I obviously wanted Cam to win. I had a ticket on him, but I was like, he's got a one-shot lead over a bunch of guys. I don't really feel too great about it. So moving down the board a little bit, Matt Fitzpatrick, I think, makes a lot of sense this week. And obviously, everyone listens to the Inside Golf podcast. If you don't, you absolutely should. And Andy, he's kind of liberal with his, takes and his, giving out people that he really likes. And he's like, Matt Fitzpatrick's winning this week. I placed a bet for him. I'm good. I'm okay on Matt Fitzpatrick, especially, again, this is super biased take. I just think Wells Fargo was his chance to win. Minus score, -8, not a lot of elite talent in the field, extreme grind fest. If he can't win there, I just don't see him winning this week, where it easily could be -16. I just think everything's going to have to come together perfectly. I don't think he's a fade by any percent chance. I really do think he can finish T8, but outright 20-1, cannot do it, will not do it, have no problem. I say that, I have no problem if he wins at 20-1. Yeah, I'll probably be upset, but it's one I could live with. I can't bet Matt Fitzpatrick at 20-1. I think it's kind of like we talk about it, like a Xander situation. You've never lost out betting them under 25-1. I know it's coming, but it's just right. I'm good.
Yeah, they are the first 2 on my short list of players that if they're under 25-1, I'm not interested. I will not bet it. I will eventually miss it, and I understand that, and I'm totally fine with it. Do it once at that type of number, and then I'll give you some consideration. But every time I see those 2 in particular at these types of numbers, they're the first ones I cross off the list from an outright standpoint. I'm just not betting it. I'm just not going there. I'll let them show it to me. One of the things that's interesting with Fitzpatrick is we keep talking about how he's close. He's striking it well. He's not putting well. He's been not putting well for a really long time now. It's been a problem, and he's going to have to do that this week in order to really contend. So I'll let him beat me if that's the case.
Yeah.
And if he's chalk in DFS, I'll fade him too, probably. Yeah. I think my kind of mindset going into it is that I think we may be overplaying some of these guys that hit fairways and hit greens, because I think we're going to see a lot more people in the fairways because they're going to have less club in their hands. And so it kind of mitigates what a Fitzpatrick or a Brendan Todd does well, because everybody's going to be in the fairways, and then it's all about the second shot and who does that better. So that's just kind of a stance that I'm taking, and if I see chalk trending the other direction, which I think we will see, that's how I'm going to try to get some leverage.
Yeah, so HV3, I'm just not betting outright. I'm not doing it. Prisoner of the moment. I don't think he can win. I'm not going to do it. I have no problem with it at 25-1, whatever number. It's fine. Corey Connors, honestly, he's been putting decent. Like, he's not been losing a million strokes on putting. Again, Canadians don't super fare well at this tournament, at this event. But I kind of like Corey. I just think he will play well this week. Again, I don't trust him to really win it -16 or something like that, but I just think that this course sets up decently well for him. So Corey could be a play, but I'll be betting Tyrrell Hatton outright. I got a 33-1. I just think in a field like this, you just kind of take the best value that you see. And I think Tyrrell Hatton at 33-1 is good value. In this field, I really like his performance at the PGA Championship. Finished 13th, gained 3.6 on approach, gained 3.5 putting. He's gained stroke in putting in his last 7 events, recorded events on tour. At 33-1, he's gonna win one soon. I think he's a better player to just have one win on the PGA Tour. So Tyrrell Hatton is my one outright that I'm like it's actually in. I put a decent amount of money on it. Tyrrell's my guy this week, and I hope he gets it done.
Yeah, I fully understand that. I think Tyrrell makes a lot of sense. I'm not quite there with him in the outright market. I'm actually giving more consideration to Connors but the number's just so bad. It's just really hard to do. But if I were to take the Andy Lack hard stand, it would be on Connors. I really think he could be the guy that wins this week. I punched in the lovely 300 boost that DraftKings gives you to get him up to 25 and make me feel a little bit better, but I still haven't actually pulled the trigger yet. So he's kind of where I'm leaning from an outright standpoint. But yeah, Hatton makes a ton of sense. He's another guy he's just got so much talent if he can harness it, and we've seen him do it before. We've seen him put it all together at an API, and he can certainly get it done, especially around tougher tracks. So he makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so he's my guy. I'm riding with him this week. I'm starting a lot of lineups. JT, Hatton. I think that's a good build. I think that's a good way to start. I think people will be betting Hatton and playing him in DFS because I just think a lot of people are thinking what I'm thinking and just looking at this week and just being like, okay, I see some value on him, so I'm going to play him. Tony Finau, he played well the past 2 weeks. He's putting together decent, stats across the board. And I know he struggled a little bit to begin the season, but I think that there's a case to be made that he's kind of rounding into form and he's getting his game back. And I think with 2 majors that he usually excels at coming up, I just think this could be a good spot to kind of get in on Tony because I think his game's trending in the right direction.
Yeah, what's the best number out there? I mean, the last I saw was a 24 or something.
Yeah, you could get a 30-1 on him on
30, okay,
right now.
Yeah, that's not bad. Again, he's a similar type at the top that I'm looking at. Take the driver out of his hand and put him in the fairway a little bit more, and hopefully he can can hit greens, and with him, it's always been about making putts, and obviously the whole getting it done on Sunday thing. But yeah, he makes a lot of sense. He's going to be more of a DraftKings play for me. I'm not going to get there on the outright market, but I agree with you. Overall, he certainly makes a lot of sense for what we think this is going to be like.
So out of like kind of the next range, like Munoz, Hadwin, Kirk, Mitchell, Rose, Sahith, Vegas, Mac Hughes, is there anyone you kind of like in that range that you're kind of playing in DFS, or you think can have a good week?
Yeah, I mean, I think Hadwin can have a good week. Going back to the Canada thing, he had just entered the tour. I think it was actually his first event in 2010 on this course. So he's been out there, played it in the PGA format and set up before, and that's not really anything to lean heavily on. Is 12 years ago. But I think he has the type of skill set that we think can be successful. He's a really good putter. He's going to be really excited to play here and to get out and try to contend. And I think he just makes a lot of sense from a course fit type of standpoint. So that's where I would lean. And I think he's a good quote unquote safe play for, kind of single entry type of stuff from a DFS side of things.
Yeah, and he's had a really good season. Like, I don't think that's something to be, overlooked. He had 3 straight top 10s, a month ago or so, and then he went through a little bit of a rush patch, but he obviously played pretty nicely last week with that hole-in-one, gained across the board. So I think Hadwin's a good play. I think a lot of people are going to be playing him. I don't think that's a surprise at all.
Right.
A guy that I would like to, maybe bet live or kind of see how things play out. But if it's going to be a little tough, like I'm going to play Mackenzie Hughes. Like I think he's a good play this week, another Canadian that we're talking about. But, again, if it's going to be a lot more low scoring than we anticipated, I don't know if I love him. But again, made the cut last week at Memorial, 37th place finish. And, he was tied for the first round lead after the first day. He gets kind of faded over the weekend, but, the skill and the ball striking was there. And I really like the fact that he top 10 at Memorial, which I think that people are thinking is a pretty good comp. So I think that's good. And then, again, this is a guy that, top 10, top 15 in both the U.S. Open and Open Championship last year. Like, he's definitely shown up in big events. And again, he's a very much a boomer bust kind of play. Like, he was like 10 over after the first day at the PGA. Like, I kind of expect that happening. But I think Mackenzie Hughes is a good play. Again, I don't think people are going to be kind of like super excited to go play at 10-4, like 80, like 60-1 Mac Hughes. But he's someone that, is just a good putter, good short game. If he could kind of just put his irons together, I think that he could have a good round and, kind of play well this week in the Canadian spotlight.
Yeah, he's a guy that I never get right. So I'll let everybody know if I'm playing him or if I'm not, and just do the opposite of what I do, and it'll go well for you. Whenever I fade him, he pulls out his Spieth magic beans and is chipping in from off the green and making 50-foot putts and stuff like that. And then when I play him, he can't put anything together to make the cut. So I'll be sure to put something out there, let you know what I'm doing with him, and you can do the opposite.
Love it. Can't wait. Excited for it. So is there anyone kind of further down the board, like in the 7K range, that you're looking at, like a Patrick Rogers, JJ Spawn, Canadian Nick Taylor, Cam Champ, Hubbard? Like, these are guys we're normally playing like in the high 6s, and now they're in like the high 7s, and it's just kind of hard for a lot of people to stomach. But kind of in that 7K range, is there anyone that you want to bet and want to target?
I mean, you got to play some of these guys. The only outright that I've made is Cam Champ. He was 130-1 on DraftKings. I thought he would be around the 100 range. Most of the books were 65 to 80 or something like that. The more digging I did, I don't know that it's a great course fit. He's taken the driver out of his hands. He's not really going to be able to bomb and gouge this course. But what attracted me to him is as I was putting stuff together on Sunday, he kept popping up, and it was all of his really beyond 200 metrics, his beyond 200 par three scoring and his approach play. Both were like top 15 in this field, and that kind of jumped out at me as kind of a long shot. He's a great GPP play. Nobody's going to be on him. He's going to be 5 or 6% at most. When he goes well, he scores really well, and he'll, even if he finishes, top, outside the top 20, something like that, a lot of times he can outscore his placement position from a DraftKings standpoint. So he's one. I do like Nick Taylor a lot. I think he's another guy. Get the driver out of your hands and you're accurate. He can fire on approach. He's got 2 out of the last three tournaments over 4 strokes gained on approach. And you can get long odds on him too. And he's a guy that's won on tour before. He's worth a shot for me. And then I think you get into kind of the young bucks, some of the guys that we've all been chasing for the last 6 months or so and got nothing out of it. Your Smothermans, Alex Smalley to some extent. Some of those guys that I think can stand out. I like JT Poston there at the bottom. So those are some of the names that, I'm just kind of closing my eyes and clicking this week because you're, like you said, you're just not used to paying this price for them.
Yeah, no, and I think Poston's a good play. I think that I'll be on him in some DraftKings lineups. Like just in the past month or so, he's shown top 10 upside, 3rd at RBC, 9th at Wells Fargo. Again, a decent comp, made the cut last week. So the Postman you sold me on. I like him. I think I'll play him. I think he'll be in some of my lineups and someone I'll be looking at to play. So I think that's kind of a good play. And then I think Svensson, again, I think if you're just playing like just straight up talent, straight up upside, like someone that's shown that he could top 5 finish on a shorter, difficult track at the Honda Classic, like Svensson did that. And I think that, again, like you talked about, you just want to target some great iron players. Like, he's in this field over the past 50 rounds, just 23rd in approach. Like, that's pretty good for a guy that's $7,100 and probably 100 to 1. So, again, I think that a week like this, again, I really like JT. I think he might win. I think a guy at the top could win, obviously, but I think the card, I'll probably just go Hatton and a bunch of bombs down here because I think the thing that, I'm not going to say it's not being talked about, but I think it should be kind of brought up a little bit more, is that you look at the past 2 weeks before a major, and they're both long shots. You have KH at 80 to 1 at Byron Nelson, and then you have JJ Spawn at like 200 to 1. The week before the Masters. So, this is kind of shown to be a little bit of a trend this year is that guys further down the board can get it done the week before a major. So I think that kind of making your outright card a little bit of more bombs and not targeting like the 50 to 1 range, I think it's a good strategy. And also on a week like this where you're trying to save up a little bit of money for next week at Brookline, like it makes sense to, be able to throw $10 on a guy and have a $1,000 payout because again, that's what we're all looking for.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's, we kind of tried to find some guys kind of in that middle tier, but really the middle tier doesn't exist a whole lot this week. So you kind of have that 10 or 12 at the top and then it really falls off. So I think the long shots make a lot of sense. And hey, you just rounded out a pretty good Canadian lineup. If you want to go all Canadian, you go Connors, Hadwin, Hughes, Taylor, and Svensson. You got to find one other guy from up north, and you can roll one out there.
Yeah, and then 2 guys I'll always play in the 6s. Wesley Bryan and Toshi Kodaira. I mean, Toshi, things have kind of cooled off. Obviously, he's not really that good at golf, but he always kind of just pops up randomly, like 15th at Mexico, 12th at Sony, 35th at Puerto Rico. Tout was putting out, you just play Toshi outside the continental U.S. like that's fine with me. Like those are 3 good events, not in the continental USA. Maybe that's what he needs to kind of jumpstart him. So Tosha this week, I'm down. Wesley Bryan, always like he's someone that's just grinding to try and get his card back, and he's shown that he could win on the PGA Tour. And he puts out good YouTube videos. So, I mean, why not? Like, I'm down. Like, I'll play him. Is there, if you're going down to the 6s, is there anyone you're kind of playing?
No, I wrote up Wesley Bryan alongside you today in fantasy points. So I agree. He's been good on approach. I think he qualified for the U.S. Open yesterday. I think he's had a pretty decent stretch of scores here and there, but he's been pretty volatile, and that's what you get out of this range. So I think he can be fine. There's another guy at the bottom that I'm not going to pretend to know a ton about, Chris Gutterup. There's been a lot on Twitter about him from Skylar Hoke that's put out a number of things about him. Basically, he finished 7th at Puerto Rico. He's a young up and comer that a lot of people are excited about. There's some big numbers out there on him. He's 6,300 in DraftKings. I think you're going to have to hit somebody kind of in that range this week because I think if it goes the way that we think, and some of the top heavy side of it is in 4 or 5 of them are in the top 15, you're going to need to find that guy that kind of comes out of nowhere, and that's where it probably needs to be MME. It might be more lineups are better than few this week because you're just going to have to throw some darts, and that's just the way that this week is set up.
Yeah. So again, pick your guys at the top, find a few guys down the board that we talked about. But honestly, like again, I'm gonna bet Hatton, a couple bombs, not a lot of placements, smaller investment. I've honestly been getting killed, like won't lie to anybody, like a lot of Venmos to the bookie, like it's all good. Cam Smith, fuck you for not finishing inside the top 10. Had a lot of money on that. But it's all good. It's fine. It's golf betting. Like, this is what happens. Like, it's okay. So I kind of want to talk about the U.S. Open a little bit. I put out a tweet before. Like, it was, like, kind of a joke, but it's kind of, like, not a joke. And it was kind of, like, my model for the U.S. Open at the top of the board. Like, I don't think there are a lot of attractive options at the top of the board for the U.S. Open. Scottie Scheffler just won the Masters. He's not going to win 2 majors in 1 year. Rahm sucks. He's not going to golf anymore. JT just won the PGA. He's not going to win back-to-back majors. Lowry legitimately can't win majors. That's not a bit. Like, he can't win a major. So, like, just that's not even a joke. Cam Smith, sure, fine. He doesn't. He's fine in the model. Brooks, not good. He also will be 40-1. Colin, not good at golf anymore. DJ, Liv, like, no. Cantley, not a bit. Actually is horrible in majors. Like, can't bet him. Xander, can't win. Jordan, I guess. Like, Jordan and Cam are kind of like the model plays for me at the moment. Do you have any early thoughts on the top of the board at the U.S. Open?
Yeah, I mean, I like where your head's at. But I think that probably one of your, these guys can't win again type of thing is going to fall short. The only bet I've made right now is actually on Daniel Berger. I got a 60-1, got a little bit excited about his form over the weekend. He's a grinder. I think US Open is, if we're going to see him contend, I think he's got a 6th place finish there before. That's the setup that I would want a Daniel Berger at, is he can hit some fairways, hit some greens. He's got enough of a short game and a really good game around the green to potentially contend. But I have realized that Rory is my favorite golfer. I've accepted that, and he's probably where I'm leaning if I'm going to the top of the board. It's almost always the U.S. Open where you need long and straight off the tee.
Yep.
And hopefully he finds it in him to put 4 rounds together at some point here in a major, and gets off the schneid there.
Yeah, like, my thing about the U.S. Open, this is nothing groundbreaking. Like, this is nothing crazy or anything. But you look at the past winners, they are all elite drivers of the ball. When you think about these golfers, they are elite drivers of the ball. Jon Rahm, Bryson, Gary Woodland, Brooks Koepka twice, Dustin Johnson. Obviously, Spieth the year before. But, like, those are all elite drivers of the golf ball. Those are guys that you think can just absolutely bomb it out there. And that's where I get a little bit of a hesitation with betting a Spieth or a Cam, because is the U.S. Open really going to be won by a guy with great short game? I mean, it can, sure. This might be a better setup, but I'm looking at the flyovers. I'm looking at the Golf Digest video. These 4 first holes are absolute beasts. They're 500-yard par 4s, like on elevated greens. Like, I mean, yeah, I want a guy that's super long. That is why Will Zalatoris is winning the U.S. Open. Full stop. No question about it. Again, like on these first 4 holes, like obviously, like it's kind of a shorter course, but just looking at the yardages, like looking at the past winners of the U.S. Open, this is nothing groundbreaking. I'm not trying to say anything crazy. Like, I just think you have to be a elite driver of the ball. I think you have to have you have to be able to wound up and hit it 330, 340 off the tee.
Yep.
So, I think that's Zalatoris. Like, I want a guy that's comfortable with the 6-iron. Again, Zalatoris. So, again, I'm both like the post is obviously a joke, but it's not a joke because I think those are a lot of reservations that can't win 2 majors in a year. That's like actually a joke. Like, I think Scotty and JT are obviously super live, but I mean, it's a little interesting at the top of the board because there's no kind of clear guy that everyone, is running to that makes perfect sense.
But all right, but why not Scotty? Like, why isn't he a clear guy? Like he missed the cut of the PGA. Like, that's fine. Eventually he's, gonna not have a good 4 rounds. And then he goes to a playoff the next week. So I mean, he's still the guy. I don't think that's really changed. I don't love him this week because I do think I just think he's kind of ramping up for next week. And I don't think that this course really highlights what he does well, but certainly next week where, being long, being straight off the tee is to a huge advantage. That's Scotty and that's Rory are the first two names that come to my mind at the top of the board. Absolutely Zalatoris, depending on where's his number right now.
So I think you get like a 30 on him. I have a 36, 32.
Yeah,
I got it on my local. Like, got that within each way, whatever. Like, I'm fine. Scotty, right. I love. Like, Scotty, that's not like I like Scotty this week. I was literally thinking today, like, no bullshit, not just saying this. Like, I was like, if I could get a 14 on Scotty, like, very much so could be live. And I did a major preview show with the Golf Gambling Podcast. Go check them out at the beginning of the year. I had to pick a long shot over 50 to 1. I'm like, I'm cheating. Scotty Scheffler 40 to 1. He was like top 10 at the USAM here. And again, like, I know we won the Masters. I would have thought his first major would have been at a PGA or a US Open, top 10 at Torrey last year. Like, this guy's just built for majors. Like, he's going to do it at a US Open. So again, like a 14 to 1 on Scotty. I like that a lot. I'm hoping I could get it. I'm like really hoping I could get a 14 to 1 on Scotty. And then again, just off that post, like just the interaction, I'm not going to call anyone chalk like a week before. I think Max Homa will be an extremely popular, extremely high-owned DraftKings play, especially like a low 8 guy. Like, they're like, again, I didn't say anything.
Well, he's still 70. I mean, you can get a 70 on him. And for that, like for a guy that's won several times on tour, like, why not? And that is, you talked about Zalatoris, like long and straight off the tee. That is,
he's an elite driver of the ball.
He surprised me earlier this year. I didn't realize how long he was off the tee. But he has become one of those players that you got to look out for every week. And if they're going to keep giving us 70 to 1s because he doesn't have the run of top 10s that some of the other top guys do, we don't care about that. We want the guy that when he peaks, he wins. And that's what he's shown an ability to do. So I think he makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And that's why a lot of people have that's why people have Max Homa futures, like for the reasons like you laid out. Like, I think it makes sense. You could get him at, like you said, 65 to 1 on DraftKings Sportsbook right now. I'm looking at it right now. I don't hate that. I really do not hate that. And again, I think this guy will win a U.S. Open in his career. I think Cam Young, I think he'll be very popular, 50 to 1.
Yeah.
Like, I think I can kind of see, like, I think at the Masters, like I think it was like just pick 2 guys under 20. Like I think that at like the PGA, a lot of people were betting guys under 20-1. Like I could see a lot of people's cards kind of maybe one guy short and then a lot of guys, kind of longer down the board, because I think that like the case I laid out, I think people aren't like going to be super excited to bet a lot of these guys at the top. And I think that, Gary Woodland won the US Open like at 65, like 100-1. Like Bryson won it like third. Like I don't think that you could say like an elite under 20-1 is guaranteed going to win the US Open. Like I think this is a year that maybe someone kind of shoots out of it and kind of we're due. I thought we were going to not be due after Mito won the PGA. He did not, because we were due for a weird one. I think the US Open could be a weird one this year, but Zalatoris will win, so it's really
No, I'm with you, and I think he has the skill set, but I do think that the U.S. Open is one of, maybe out of the 4 majors, the one where it has put itself in a particular type of skill set that you have to have. Going back to your point on the driving, like you can narrow down your pool pretty quickly and say, these guys, yes, they're very good players. They're not winning a U.S. Open, type of thing. And I think you can do that pretty quickly, and then shop around, find the best numbers, and see how it goes. I think it's a pretty defined skill set that wins the U.S. Open.
Yeah, so we're going to get through this week. We're not going to lose all our money. Maybe we'll win some money, and then we'll spend it all next week. But I really appreciate you coming on, Chris. I know you got a lot going on. So as always, check out Chris on Twitter. He puts out a lot of great content. He puts out content during the week if you're into the live betting stuff. And he's just a great guy. And I appreciate you coming on. And I'm glad we're friends and buds.
Yeah, buddy. Thanks for having me on. Always good to talk to you, BK.
All right, everyone have a great night. Appreciate it. Go check out BetSperts, and let's hope the Lightning can close this game out.